Hi, we're going to compare two knives today. We're going to compare the Real Steel Bushcraft 2. You can compare it to the Mora Garberg. Both of these knives are new Bushcraft knives for 2016. Both of them are fairly similar in construction, purpose and intent, and they're definitely about the same size and the same grind, variations in handle material and general handle makeup, but overall these knives are made for the same purpose, being a hard use type bushcraft knife. Let's get further into what that means. So a hard use bushcraft knife is something that's full tang, that is designed somewhat to be sold as also perhaps a survival knife with survival capabilities. This is in comparison to your sort of standard bushcraft knives, which are generally more for carving purposes, such as the original Mora Companion and those style of blades where the tang doesn't go all the way in. It's just a really sharp little blade for making intricate little bits of woodwork. So that is my understanding anyway. So what you get here are two knives that are about 3.5 millimeters thick. They both have full tangs going all the way through the handles. The Bushcraft 2 by Real Steel is a slab design and the Mora is an enclosed full tang, but they're both very robust blades. Similarities continue. As you can see, both of the blades are pretty much the same length, and especially when you just compare the cutting edges, pretty much identical. The Bushcraft 2 has slightly more of a cascading drop, whereas this has a little bit more resembling a clippy type point, but really in terms of broadness and in terms of grind, very, very similar knives. The differences here are this one is made of D2, which is a tall steel, and this one is made of 14C28N, which is a Sandvik produced stainless steel. For the handles you get a polished G10 with red liners on the Real Steel Bushcraft, and then you get a sort of thermoplastic on the Mora Garberg, which is just enclosing that full tang, and it just does, to the feel, it just feels like a hard plastic, just standard plastic. I've been assured by many people on the comments for the previous Mora reviews that it isn't just plastic and it's been tested in all sorts of conditions, so you know what, I'll take their word for it. I can't prove otherwise, so it isn't just plastic, it's a thermo type, you know, enduring plastic that'll put up with more than your average plastic, but it just feels like plastic in the hand. It feels like plastic with some engraving in it. It's what it feels like. If you handle one and disagree, then please tell me how it feels different, because it's plastic. And this one's the same really. This is G10. It's a type of layered sort of resinous plastic, and it just feels like hard, smooth, sort of kitchen bench top type material in this example. There's some contouring on the knife, and there's some contouring on the, so it's contouring this way, and there's also contouring this way, so it makes sort of a fairly ergonomic cutter in hand. Pinned through the tang here and enclosed through the tang here is how they're constructed. Jimping on the back, whereas the Mora does not have jimping. The Mora has sort of a top and a bottom guard slightly, whereas the Bushcraft just has a straight back, so your thumb can ride all the way over and grip on there. In terms of price, the Bushcraft 2 in Australia is about $90, in America is about $40 to $50. In Australia this is about $140. And I know I've got so many comments in the last video, I can't believe you people complaining about how cheap this knife, how expensive this knife is. That's an expensive knife in Australia. For $140 you can get a lot more, not a lot more perhaps, but you can get bigger 1095 steel knives. It's not playing in its price range in Australia just yet. That's our problem. In America, apparently you can get it for about $80 or $90 on Amazon. I saw Living Survival did a link. So yes, the price is probably a bit better in America, but I am where I am. So the price is just clearly, without even going into the test, the price on this, and probably the value, is clearly better on this Real Steel Bushcraft 2, because A, it's a lower price, and B, you could argue that the materials are a little bit better. Perhaps not the blade steel. Blade steel, debatable. But in terms of layering G10, things like that, there's more complexity to this process, as well as, you know, rather than just setting something in plastic. So, just my opinion, but yeah, I did get a bit of flack in the Mora reviews for criticising the price. Mora has, and it's fine, there's certain brands that I fiercely defend as well, and if you're the same for Mora, then that's great. If you see the value, $140 Australian for this, then by all means go for it. But we now have talked about price, we'll stop talking about it and just turn to the performance and the abilities of the knives. So the Real Steel and the Mora, both very, very sharp grind styles, so they're almost absolute Scandies. They just each have sort of minor micro bevels on, just to provide endurance for those sort of more heavy duty tasks that these full tang thicker bushcraft knives are designed for. So to do that, they'll sort of put the Scandi grind on it, and then just put they'll run it through a slightly different angle, just right on the edge, which just kind of, so that tiny little edge is going to get damaged rather than the entire Scandi edge if you hit a knot while you're battening through wood. And battening through wood's just something that's taken off like wildfire, and just the average consumer seems to think they want to do that with their knife. So knife companies are making knives now for that, because that's spread so much. So both of them have had micro bevels put on, so they won't carve as crazy well as a knife without a micro bevel, perhaps like my Mora Bushcraft Black. I took the micro bevel off, and that is an absolute Scandi, and that is crazy sharp, but somewhat of a fragile edge if I was to hit a piece of gravel or something like that. In terms of carving ability, both very, very similar. The long-term carving, I did find, and this is a blade and handle combination, I did find that the Real Steel Bushcraft is a little bit more comfortable to use than the Mora Garberg. Mora Garberg's got a really nice round handle, which is good in one sense, but it's got these two guards here which sort of dig in a little bit, especially when you want to get in a bit closer. You have to run your thumb up and over it, which isn't as good as just running your thumb straight against the back of a blade. So that is a minor issue with the Mora Garberg. A way that the Mora Garberg does trump the Bushcraft is that it has this extended pole here, so you can use it for sort of a bit of extra hammering and scraping. Both knives have sharp spines, so you can both do the Bushcraft thing of striking your ferro rod. You'll see me just ignoring the little striker that came with my Light My Fire Scout and using the knife, because that seems to be the style of the time, and some people just prefer that. Whatever, that's fine. I'm not here to comment on what everyone does when they're out in the woods with their knives. What else is at play here? Well, this knife is made in China. You might have an issue with that. I don't care too much. I think this knife, it has its staunch defenders, because people like things that are made in the Western world. I know Sweden's not America, but people like things made by, it's tricky, but people always prefer something that's made by Anglo-Saxon people than China. It's just what it is, and I mean the general human race does. It's just what happens. You get fond of non-Chinese brands, whereas Chinese brands still have that stigma about them, about just rushing everything out massively. It is starting to change in the knife world with high-end folders that are coming out, but yeah, so people will probably defend this brand and support this brand, and probably are happy to pay a little bit extra for this brand. But as far as I can tell, holding the knives each in hand and using them and stuff, I wouldn't be able to say that this is particularly more durable than this knife. G10 is a really robust material, so I'm not sure if the sort of the plastic here in the Mora handle, this whatever magic plastic it is as good as G10 at impact resistance and things. I'm not about to test it anyway, because these are still just 4-inch knives. So I'm not going to be prying boulders out of canyons with them or anything like that. So in terms of blade, they're about even. In terms of handle, the Real Steel Bushcraft is more comfortable for me to use. I don't know what else I can say about that, but it just is. It's just got the contouring, and it just fits my hand a bit better. The G10 feels a little bit nicer and more warm to the touch, and it's got little extra features, like I like the jimping on the back. I like these scalped off sections here, so you can do some different sort of sideways cuts, all that sort of business. A little bit easier than the Mora Garberg, which sort of, it's like a little collar all the way around there, as you can see. So what do you reckon? Which blade would you get? Look, neither of them particularly win on the sheaths, so if that's what you're thinking, in terms of the examples that I have, the multi-mount sheath from Mora is a bit weird, and you just end up using it with the thin little belt loop anyway. And the Real Steel sheath is no amazing thing either. I guess it's made of Kydex, the actual sheath part of it, which is this part. But then these clips, they're weird to put on. You have to put it on sideways. This lumpy part here blocks it when you try and put it upright. So none of them are winning too many points on having the best sheath. So I would suggest that this knife with the leather sheath would probably be the winner if that's the one you choose to get. But overall, the Mora would have to come down for me to recommend it to the person who, if you're brand ambivalent, you're not fussed, it's hard to not recommend the Real Steel over the Mora, because you get arguably more for about, in Australia again, about $60 less. Knife that do basically the same thing. I mean, who are you though? Are you like me? I'll take my bushcraft knife out every so often on a trip. I've always got a knife on me, like a camp knife or something, just for doing basic tasks that might come into my mind. If I go on a longer trip and expect to be carving or something, then yeah, I'll bring a bushcrafty, Scandi grind type knife. Realistically, it'll be my LT Wright Genesis, or my which is this knife here, which is just far more comfortable in every way, but you pay a lot more for that. But realistically, I'll bring it out only every so often. And, I mean, we all, in our YouTube comments, we all say all these things we do all the time, but I'll be honest, I probably go out maybe once a month if I'm lucky, and have a good, like, long-term time out in the woods. I'm a busy person. I work full-time. I've got kids, man. And yeah, every so often I bring my knife. I'm more of I collect, and I experiment with them. I use them a lot around the home and stuff. And so I've carved my walking stick, just as something I've been doing from time to time. But if you truly are someone who's going out always, and you want that assured lifetime warranty from Mora, and you just like the Mora brand, then yeah, of course, get it. If it brings you joy, get it. Like if it brings you joy having the full tang Mora that's new this year and it's brilliant, there is no shame in doing that whatsoever. It's just for the recommendation for someone who doesn't really care, who just wants a bit of a wood carving knife that's also strong, that they can do that cool batoning stuff that I've seen people do, and you want to give that all that stuff a shot, which is fine too. Then you really can't knock the Real Steel, and you really couldn't recommend the Mora over it, I don't think. But again, what do you think? Please tell me in the comments, let me know. Yeah, just be kind, because yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting. People get they've decided that this was going to be a brilliant knife before it even came out, I think, and it's a good knife, but it's definitely not a brilliant knife. This is a good knife too, but it's still not a brilliant knife. This is a brilliant knife. This is a LT Wright Genesis. This is a proper brilliant bushcrafting knife. It's got a lot of thought put into it, and it is supremely comfortable. And the blade steel is better than either of those. And it's what, if you're a real keen bushcrafter, you'd probably have something like this anyway. A custom, a jack claw, something like that. So these are both really average person bushcrafty knives, really, layman bushcraft knives, and between the two of them I'd have to go the Real Steel. So thanks very much for watching this comparison video on these two similar sized, similar ground, generally similar bushcraft knives. I'll see you in the next video.